Imagine yourself standing on the edge of an ancient forest, the trees towering high above, shrouded in mist. The sun dips behind the mountains, casting long shadows that seem to stretch out toward you, pulling you in. The people in town had warned Emily, the young girl new to the village, to stay away from the woods after dark. They spoke in hushed whispers about something lurking within, something not quite human. But Emily was drawn to the unknown. She was curious, maybe even a little reckless. As the full moon began to rise, Emily took her usual walk along the forest's edge, her footsteps the only sound breaking the eerie silence. She'd heard stories about strange creatures, about a curse that gripped the forest whenever the moon was full. Some said it was a beast, others said it was a man cursed to roam, torn between human and animal. Emily brushed it off as local superstition until that night. The howling came suddenly, splitting the air like a jagged knife. Emily froze, her heart pounding as the sound echoed through the trees. It was close, closer than she'd ever heard it before. She wanted to run, but something held her in place, a strange pull that whispered, "Stay." And then she saw him. He stepped out from the shadows, tall and mysterious, with eyes that glowed a chilling amber under the moonlight. His face was partially hidden, but there was something undeniably wild about him. The villagers had called him the Lost Wolf. They'd warned her about him. He was cursed, they'd said, a man-turned beast, doomed to prowl the forest forever. But in that moment, all Emily felt was curiosity, and something else she couldn't quite name. "Why do you come here every night?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. Emily took a shaky breath, feeling a strange mix of fear and intrigue. "I wanted to see if the stories were true." The man gave a bitter smile. "They're true, and if you're wise, you'll turn back now and never come here again." He looked away, as if torn between warning her and something deeper, something darker. Once you see the curse, you can't escape it. But Emily didn't leave. Night after night, she found herself returning, drawn to the mystery of him. She wanted to know more, to understand the story behind his haunted gaze, and why he was bound to this forest. Every time she tried to ask, he would dodge the question, changing the subject, as if the truth was too painful to speak aloud. As days turned into weeks, Emily and the stranger, whom she'd begun calling Adrian, fell into a strange, silent routine. She would arrive at dusk, he would emerge from the shadows, and together they would walk along the forest's edge. They shared only fragments of conversation, but the unspoken bond between them grew stronger with each passing night. She knew there was danger in it, in the wildness that lurked just beneath his skin, but she couldn't turn away. Then one night, everything changed. The full moon was larger and brighter than she had ever seen it before, casting an eerie glow over the forest. Adrian was restless, his movements sharper, his eyes wilder. He kept glancing toward the trees, as if something within him was fighting to break free. "This is your last chance, Emily," he said, his voice shaking with barely restrained tension. "Go back to town. Don't come here again. I can't control it tonight." But Emily stayed, feeling a strange thrill pulse through her veins. She wanted to help him, to understand the curse that held him captive. But as the moon rose higher, Adrian doubled over in pain, his body contorting in ways that made her gasp. His bones seemed to twist and snap as thick fur began to spread across his skin. He was transforming, turning into the creature the villagers had warned her about. Fear gripped her, but she couldn't move. She could only watch as Adrian's human features faded, replaced by the snarling, fanged face of a beast. The wolf's gaze met hers, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw a flicker of recognition, a trace of the man he used to be. But then he let out a deafening howl, and she knew that whatever part of Adrian had been left was gone, replaced by the curse that owned him. She ran, her heart pounding as she stumbled through the darkness, the sound of his heavy footsteps echoing behind her. She could feel his presence, close and closing in, his hot breath just behind her. Just when she thought she was out of reach, she tripped, falling hard against the forest floor. Turning over, she found herself face to face with the beast, its amber eyes blazing with a hunger that was both animalistic and familiar. But instead of attacking, he stopped, sniffing the air as if recognizing her scent. A low growl rumbled in his throat, his claws digging into the ground. But he didn't move. Emily held her breath, unable to tear her eyes away from him, waiting for the inevitable. In that instant, she felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a part of Adrian that could fight the curse. She reached out slowly, her hand trembling, and touched his fur. The wolf shuddered, his eyes softening for a fraction of a second before he backed away, disappearing into the shadows. Emily returned to the village, shaken and haunted by what she'd seen. But now, she had a new mission. She couldn't just leave Adrian to the curse. She had to find a way to break it. The villagers spoke of an old legend, of a ritual that could free a cursed soul. But it came at a cost, a sacrifice that few were willing to make. Determined, Emily set out to learn the truth, unaware of the dangers that lay ahead. And here's the question for you, watching this right now. If you were in Emily's place, would you risk everything to save someone you barely knew? Let us know in the comments below. Emily's obsession with Adrian grew stronger. She couldn't forget the look in his eyes, the way he seemed to fight against the beast within him, as if a part of him was desperately clinging to his humanity. The villagers, however, weren't as compassionate. They knew of the werewolf that haunted the forest, and they had only one solution: fire. They planned to drive the creature out and burn the woods, hoping to rid themselves of the curse once and for all. Desperate to save Adrian, Emily turned to an old woman named Agnes, a recluse who lived on the outskirts of the village. Agnes was feared and avoided by most, her cabin surrounded by charms and symbols meant to keep people away. But Emily believed that if anyone knew the secrets of the curse, it would be her. When Emily arrived at Agnes's door, she found the old woman waiting, her eyes sharp and penetrating. "So you're the one who's been wandering with the wolf," Agnes said, her voice dry and knowing. Emily nodded, feeling a chill run down her spine. "I need to know how to break the curse." Agnes laughed, a sound that was both amused and bitter. "Breaking a curse as old as this one isn't easy, child. It requires more than just bravery. It requires sacrifice, and not just any sacrifice." Emily's heart pounded. What kind of sacrifice? Agnes leaned in, her gaze unblinking. "The curse can only be broken by the blood of someone who loves the cursed. The beast must know true love, a bond strong enough to overcome the beast's nature. Only then will he be freed." Emily's mind raced. Did she love Adrian? She'd only known him for a short time, yet there was an undeniable connection between them. She didn't even know if he felt the same, but the thought of him being trapped forever in that monstrous form made her heart ache. "Be careful, girl," Agnes warned, as if reading her thoughts. "Many have tried to break curses, but few survive the price." Ignoring Agnes's warnings, Emily left, determined to try. The full moon would rise again in a few nights, and she had to act fast. She spent the following days preparing, studying every piece of lore she could find, collecting herbs, and preparing a charm Agnes had reluctantly given her. The charm was supposed to temporarily hold Adrian's humanity, giving her a brief moment to break through to him before the curse fully took over. The night of the full moon came, and Emily returned to the forest. Her heart was racing, fear gripping her as she entered the clearing where they had met so many times before. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the woods, and the air was filled with a thick, oppressive silence. Adrian was there, waiting for her. His face was tense, his body trembling as he fought against the transformation. "Emily?" he managed to say, his voice strained. "Why are you here? You should leave." But she shook her head. "I'm not leaving. I came to help you." Before he could protest, she placed the charm around his neck, murmuring the words Agnes had taught her. For a moment, Adrian's features softened. The beast within him momentarily held at bay, his eyes locked onto hers, filled with a mixture of pain and longing. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "If you're here when I lose control, I won't be able to stop myself." Emily took his hand, her voice steady. "I'm not afraid. I believe there's a way to break this, Adrian. But you have to trust me." The charm's power began to wane, and she could see the beast starting to claw its way back to the surface. Desperate, she reached up and pressed her lips to his, hoping that somehow the bond they shared would be enough to break the curse. She felt his body shudder, torn between human and beast, as the power of the full moon surged within him. But just as she thought her plan might work, a roar echoed through the forest. The villagers had arrived carrying torches and weapons, their faces twisted with fear and anger. "Burn the monster!" one of them shouted, his voice filled with hatred. Emily turned, horrified. "No, wait! He's not a monster! He's cursed!" But they didn't listen. The villagers advanced, determined to destroy the creature they feared. Adrian's form shifted fully into that of a werewolf, his eyes filled with a mixture of fury and despair as he prepared to fight for his life. In a moment of desperation, Emily stood between him and the villagers, her arms outstretched. "If you want to hurt him, you'll have to go through me." The villagers hesitated, their eyes darting between her and the beast behind her. But before anyone could react, Adrian let out a howl of pain, his body convulsing as he tried to resist the curse. Emily held him, whispering that she was there, that he wasn't alone. And in that moment, as his claws wrapped around her arm, Adrian's gaze softened. The beast within him recognized her, remembered her, and for a brief, fleeting second, she thought she saw the man she had fallen for breaking through. But the curse was relentless, stronger than either of them had anticipated. As Adrian's claws grazed her skin, drawing blood, Emily felt a strange sensation wash over her. It was as if the curse was passing between them, binding them together in ways she hadn't intended. Then the world began to blur, the villagers' shouts fading as she and Adrian were enveloped in darkness, both of them caught in the grip of an ancient power that neither love nor hate could break. Now here's the real question. If you were Emily, would you have stood between him and the villagers, risking everything to save someone bound by a curse? Emily's vision faded into darkness, but she could still feel Adrian's grip, the faint heartbeat beneath the fur and claws that had replaced his once human form. It was as if she was suspended between worlds, between life and death, between her humanity and something much darker. When her vision cleared, she found herself somewhere else entirely. She was standing in a moonlit clearing, surrounded by shadowy figures with eyes that gleamed like the stars. These weren't villagers or even people. They were spirits, ancient, timeless beings, watching her with a mixture of curiosity and hunger. One of the spirits stepped forward, an old withered creature cloaked in rags that seemed to merge with the night itself. Its voice was soft but chilling, as though it spoke directly into her mind. "You seek to break a curse that has lingered for centuries," it whispered, its voice echoing in her ears. "But curses are not broken without consequences, young one." Emily shivered, feeling the weight of the curse settle over her. She tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't come. Instead, the spirit continued, its gaze locked on her. "To free him, you must take his place. Only one can carry the burden of the wolf's curse. Choose now, and the decision will be final." The reality of the choice struck her with a terrifying force. If she took on the curse, she'd be condemning herself to an endless cycle of transformation, her humanity slipping further away with every full moon. But if she refused, Adrian would be trapped forever, lost to the beast within him. "Emily," a familiar voice called, snapping her out of her trance. She turned to see Adrian standing before her, his face pale, his eyes filled with sorrow and fear. "I can't let you do this," he said, his voice trembling. "This curse is mine. I won't let it take you too." But she stepped closer to him, her resolve unshaken. "Adrian, I can't let you face this alone. We'll find a way together." The spirits around them began to whisper, their voices blending into a haunting chant that filled the air. The leader stepped forward, raising a bony hand toward them. "Very well," it intoned. "You have chosen the path together. From this night forth, you are bound by blood and moonlight. What one suffers, the other shall bear." As the spirit's words faded, a blinding light engulfed them. Emily felt an overwhelming surge of pain, like fire coursing through her veins. She clung to Adrian, their hands locked together as the curse reshaped her body, their fates intertwining in a way she hadn't anticipated. When the light finally faded, they were back in the forest, the moon high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the trees. She looked at Adrian, and for the first time, she could feel what he felt. The rage, the hunger, the uncontrollable urge to transform. It was like an inferno burning within her, clawing to break free. But something was different. The curse had changed them both. Instead of transforming fully into beasts, they had become something in between, neither fully human nor fully wolf. The villagers, seeing them standing side by side, retreated, their torches flickering as fear overtook them. From that night on, Emily and Adrian were bound together, wandering the forests as creatures of the night, half human, half wolf, struggling to control the beast within. They became legends, the tale of the lovers cursed by the moon spreading through towns and villages. Some said they were monsters, others believed they were guardians of the forest, protecting it from those who wished to do it harm. Yet Emily could still feel the presence of the spirits, the echoes of their curse, as if they were watching, waiting to see if the lovers would break under the weight of their shared burden. And with every full moon, as the transformation threatened to consume them both, they wondered if their bond would be strong enough to withstand the darkness, or if they would eventually lose themselves to the beast within. If you were in their place, do you think you could resist the call of the wolf? As time passed, Emily and Adrian learned to live with their cursed existence, though each transformation left them more vulnerable to the beast within. They roamed the forests, moving from town to town, becoming myth and mystery, a pair of shadowy figures glimpsed under the moonlight, rumored to be both protectors and predators. One evening, while resting in a remote village at the edge of a dense, ancient forest, they overheard rumors of a healer said to possess knowledge about curses. Intrigued, Emily and Adrian set out to find this mysterious figure, hoping she might hold the key to finally breaking their bond with the curse. The healer's home was deep in the forest, hidden away from the prying eyes of the villagers. When they arrived, they found her cottage surrounded by strange totems and symbols, unlike anything they'd ever seen before. The healer herself was a woman with piercing green eyes and hair the color of midnight, exuding an aura that was both unsettling and captivating. She welcomed them, her gaze seeming to penetrate every secret they held. "You come seeking freedom," she said, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "But curses are not easily severed. To break this bond, you must confront the source of your suffering, the very heart of the beast that binds you." Emily and Adrian exchanged a glance, realizing that the healer wasn't referring to the curse itself, but something deeper, something they hadn't yet faced. The healer led them to a small dark room filled with strange herbs and ancient relics. She handed them a vial containing a dark, murky liquid. "Drink this," she instructed. "It will take you into the realm of your shared curse, the place where your spirits and the beast are bound together. Only there will you have a chance to confront and overcome it." With hesitation, they drank the potion, feeling a strange warmth spreading through their bodies. Their vision blurred, the world around them fading into darkness. When they opened their eyes again, they were in a twisted, nightmarish version of the forest, a place where shadows moved of their own accord, and the trees seemed to breathe, pulsing with a dark, malevolent energy. In the distance, they heard a low, menacing growl. The beast, the true essence of the curse, was there, waiting for them. It emerged from the shadows, larger and more terrifying than either of them had ever imagined, its eyes glowing with an ancient rage and hunger. The beast lunged at them, and they barely managed to evade its massive claws. But as they fought, they realized that physical attacks had no effect on it. This was no ordinary battle. They would have to face not just the creature, but the darkness within themselves. Their fears, their doubts, the anger that fueled the curse. The beast's eyes locked onto Emily, its gaze piercing into her soul. She could feel her own anger and frustration rising, emotions she had buried deep within her. It was as if the beast was feeding off her resentment, the resentment of a life stolen, a future she would never have. But Adrian was there, his hand gripping hers tightly. "We can fight this, Emily," he said, his voice steady. "Together." As they faced the beast, they began to understand its true nature. It was born from the pain and suffering of countless souls who had borne the curse before them. The beast was a manifestation of fear, loneliness, and the despair of being lost to one's darker nature. The only way to defeat it was to confront those emotions head-on, to acknowledge the darkness within themselves without letting it consume them. They focused on the bond they shared, the love and trust that had carried them through every transformation, every battle. Slowly, the beast began to weaken, its form flickering, as if it were struggling to maintain its grip on them. With one final defiant cry, they embraced each other, their love shining brightly in the dark realm, illuminating the twisted landscape. The beast let out a piercing howl, its body dissolving into shadow, banished by the strength of their bond. When they awoke, they were back in the healer's cottage. They felt different, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from their souls. But as they looked at each other, they noticed a faint, silvery scar on their wrists, a mark of the curse that would always be with them, a reminder of the battle they had fought and the darkness they had overcome. The healer nodded, a satisfied smile on her lips. "You may have defeated the curse," she said, "but remember, every full moon the beast will still call. It will always be a part of you, but as long as you face it together, it will never have control over you." From that night forward, Emily and Adrian knew they were free, not from the curse entirely, but from its control. They could now choose their path, no longer bound by fear or darkness. And as they stepped back into the forest, hand in hand, they knew that they were stronger together, that love had given them the power to face any monster, even the one within themselves. As the seasons passed, Emily and Adrian adapted to their new lives, free from the full control of the curse, but forever marked by it. Their connection to the forest deepened, and they found a sense of peace within the shadows they once feared. But each full moon, the silvery scars on their wrists tingled, a reminder that the beast still lingered in the background of their minds, a primal force that would always be a part of them. On these nights, they would go into the forest together, feeling the pulse of the moon, the pull of the wolf within. They no longer feared it. Instead, they embraced it as a part of who they were. One moonlit night, they stumbled upon a small, secluded village that had been suffering from attacks by a mysterious creature. The villagers, terrified, had become desperate, whispering rumors of a terrible beast haunting the woods. Emily and Adrian knew the signs all too well. They recognized that another soul had fallen victim to the same curse, someone who hadn't yet found a way to control it. Realizing their purpose, they decided to help this new cursed soul. They tracked the creature, and when they found it, a young man, wild-eyed and terrified, they offered him the same chance they had fought so hard to claim: control, understanding, and hope. Together they taught him how to balance the beast within, showing him that he wasn't alone in his struggle. And so, Emily and Adrian became legends, not as monsters or killers, but as guardians of the forest, protectors who walked the fine line between man and beast. Their stories spread across villages, whispered by those who had seen glimpses of the moonlit lovers, a pair who helped those cursed by the wolf find peace and purpose. As the years went by, Emily and Adrian's love deepened, stronger and more resilient, forged through trials and the shared darkness they had overcome. They found solace in knowing that they were not only bound by the curse, but by a love that transcended the moon's pull and the beast's hunger. Together they lived as both human and wolf, embracing the fullness of who they were. And now, as their story echoes through the forest, the question remains for you. Would you be strong enough to face the beast within you, to embrace even the darkest parts of yourself for love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this tale kept you on edge, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that delve into the shadows of the human heart and beyond.